happiness is like it's one of those things where it's like it can, like I was saying, it can take different forms, but also like happiness means different things to different people too.
Exactly.
And I think that's the one thing that people overlook is that, the happiness for me may not be the happiness for you.
Oh, definitely.
But we do share some versions of happiness along the ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a bad thing to disregard another person's happiness, but it is a bad thing to be happy to be happy that other people aren't, like what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think when you're approaching the subject of being happy, you need to look at it more of a selfish matter. And I'll explain that a little bit.
No, and I think, the word selfish shouldn't be painted in like a negative context.
It's like, because there are a lot of things is not to be selfish about, mm-hmm. right? There are certain things that people are like, oh, that's super selfish. Like, it's actually not, because for one thing, it's, okay, let's say that, for example, let's say that you've grown up in a community where Christmas doesn't mean the same to you. Like, it's just like Christmas has never been happy for you. So you change the scene and you're like, all right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make Christmas happy, right? I'm going to go find that community to be a part of. I'm going to be happy on Christmas. And you're finally happy on Christmas and people are just like, why don't you go and do this? Because it doesn't make me happy.
Exactly.
And that's not selfish at all. That is knowing your self-worth. Like you were saying before, that's also knowing it's self-care. It's also knowing what makes you happy, because you don't want to be around stuff that doesn't make you happy. You will find yourselves in periods of time where you're not going to be happy.
And also as well too, I think those periods of time where you feel like you're not happy, I feel like sometimes, like let's look like a flower for a second, and it's just like sometimes the sunshine isn't really shining upon this flower, and it's still in its growing state, and it's not even blooming. And, it's just like flowers grow even when the sky is gray.
Yeah.
And I think that is something very important, because I feel like that goes with our happiness as well. Shout out to Ollie Skies from Bring Me the Horizon for that line.
Right.
But there's so much truth behind that. Even Mike Posner, he's like, the sun is shining, even above the clouds. And I think, it's easy to see everything. Sorry to get existential here, but like what's in front of us, and it's just like sometimes we do miss the big picture, and it's all right. Even, God, Nikki Sixx, from 6 a.m. said we all fall off the wagon sometimes. It's not your whole life. It's only one day. You haven't thrown everything away, and I believe that, with happiness as well, too. We sometimes we find ourselves in this, like, kind of mid area where you're like, oh, man, will I ever be happy again? Will I ever see this, or will I ever see that? And sometimes you do see that, but sometimes you never do. And sometimes your happiness changes to something else. And that's totally okay.